Let's go. Welcome to the main event. Applying pressure, but I promise I ain't make it then. In their heads, living free, I ain't paying rent. Wake up in the AM, making G's like Mercedes-Benz. Whoa, yeah, please don't take it.
Welcome to the Pinnacle Living Podcast, helping you reach the pinnacle of life and business. Here with Dr. Eli Goins. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, I'm blessed and highly favored. I can't complain. And yourself?
Dude, exactly the same, bro.
Yes,
I love that. Every time I ask you how you're doing, you give me that same response, dude.
Absolutely,
I love
man.
it.
I woke up another day, so I can't complain.
So, dude, obviously you were on our agency call very recently, crushed it, and dude, you're crushing it with Financially Fluent. For those of you who don't know who you are at all, let me just give you a quick introduction. So, obviously hit President's Club last year, about to hit it again this year, actually about to do more than you did last year.
Yes, sir.
Which normally wouldn't be impressive, or like, oh, producer doing, around the same, but dude, you actually did it this year in half the time, really building an agency.
Yes, sir.
And so, dude, so talk to people about how you got into insurance and what it looked like at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a quick background as to where I started. So for those who don't know, yes, I have my doctorate. That's not just a saying, like I have my doctorate in pharmacy. So I went to the Ohio State University for my undergrad and my doctoral program. I actually played football there for 3 years, was a walk-on, then a scholarship player. Went to the NFL for a little bit, signed a free agency contract, ended up getting cut, pulled my hamstring. So I went back to school to finish up my doctorate and ultimately ended up becoming a pharmacy, which started my insurance career. So 2022 is when I got into the insurance business. Drake, my business partner and Financially Fluent, he actually recruited, I saw him on social media posting about insurance. He's been in the space for about over a decade now, but he was posting on social media about how lucrative the industry was. And at the time, I wasn't making any real money. I just graduated from pharmacy school. So I was looking to make money right away because if I'm being honest, schooling is not cheap. I was about $250,000 in student debt.
Well, you've been 8 years in school.
Exactly, 8 years in school, man. It was a process. So I wasn't making any real money because I still had to take my my licensure, my NAPLEX, until I became like an official pharmacist and started making real money. So at the time, I was looking for a side income. Reached out to Drake, and he was like, yeah, it's a very lucrative industry. It's all commission based. And I'm like, how do I sign up? What do I do? Basically, passed my exam within a week and a half. Got licensed. My very first month in the industry, I did about $37,000 issue paid business. And I'm
Your first month?
Very first month.
That's not normal.
Oh, not at all. I was an anomaly. So I was like, wait a second, $37,000 my first month. And I was comparing it to how much I was making as a pharmacist at the time. And I'm like, I just did a third of my salary as a pharmacist in one freaking month. And I still didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
I'm like, wait a second, this may be a fluke. Like, let me not put all my eggs in one basket. Let's not get too hype, right? Second month in, I did $45,000. I'm like, whoa, okay, this actually might be legitimate, right?
Yeah.
And then third month, I did another $45K month. And basically, I replaced my income as a pharmacist within 3 months doing insurance. My previous agency I was with, I became the top producer, ended up being like a top upline and everything with my team and my agency. And long story short, I ended up starting Financially Fluent later on. But it was a blessing because I started as a personal producer, then started to build my team and collect overrides and so forth, and then ultimately opened up the agency Financially Fluent.
Yeah.
Fast forward now, we have it. So,
dude, a couple big things to highlight. So first, dude, just to put it in perspective, because there's probably some people listening who are fearful about going all in on being a business owner. Dude, I gotta imagine after 8 years of schooling, really dedicating a chunk of your life to this profession. Obviously, you felt strongly that this was a good career path for you at the time. You're heavily in debt, $250,000. I mean, that's a lot of debt.
Absolutely.
Staring down, especially, like you said, you're not making a whole lot of money getting into your profession.
Exactly.
At the beginning. A couple months into insurance, you do a pivot. Dude, what gave you, and obviously to go all in even those 2 months because you had a full-time job, dude, you didn't write 30, 40,000 in part-time hours.
No.
You were working
in work.
two
Absolutely.
full-time jobs, essentially. Dude, what gave you the belief, the sense of self-belief and the direction and the purpose to pursue it so heavily and then to switch careers?
Absolutely. First and foremost, the man upstairs. This was something I prayed on heavily, talked to my family about it, and it wasn't an overnight decision. You know, it took me 3 to 4 months before I fully transitioned into like a full-time agent and put, you know, pharmacy on the back burner as a part-time pharmacist. But it was something. I'm an athlete, former athlete, right? So I had to believe in myself. I rolled the dice, I bet on myself, and more times out of not, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to come out on top. I knew if I put in the work, my work ethic is going to take me to the next level, putting in 40, 50, 60 hours of product knowledge, training, role play, scripts, learning my CRM and so forth, which was definitely going to separate me from that other agent.
Yeah.
And once I realized putting in that time into myself, into my craft, I'm like, even though I had no sales background prior to doing insurance, I knew my work ethic was going to take me to the next level, which is why I was able to be so successful in the first couple months, because I didn't know what I was doing, right? But I knew if I just put in the hours, put in the time, put into my craft and believed in myself, I could eventually make that transition. And this industry is so lucrative, it's commission based, but if you're good at something, and I was like, I'm actually a natural at this, let me go all in. But this was not an overnight decision for those of you guys that are listening out. This wasn't like, oh, well, I did my first month, let's go all in and just put pharmacy on the back burner. It took months before I fully transitioned over to just doing insurance full time. But it first started with the man upstairs, and then ultimately just believing in myself and putting in the time and the effort right out the gate.
Eli, I got to spend some time in the office with you today. I can see a lot of people in a similar situation. A lot of young people really look up to you. They see you as an inspiration. And obviously, not everybody has the same, I would say, pedigree of coming up, successful in school, successful in sports, and they might not have that same sense of self-belief, but they want to.
Absolutely.
And obviously, you speak and train a lot of these young men and women. What would you say to someone who's looking at your example and they look up to you and they're wondering if that's something they can do themselves, but they don't have that same sense of self-belief?
Absolutely.
They want to. What would you say to them?
I would say, honestly, obviously it starts with believing in yourself, but it's not going to be easy, right? You got to weather the storm. There was times where I felt like maybe this is not for me. Maybe it's too much, but you have to revert back to your basics and what you believe in and your faith and work ethic and so forth. And then that just took me to the next level. So the biggest hurdle, I would say, with new agents coming into this industry, because a lot of people come in here from a W-2 corporate job, they're used to a salary, they're used to, you know, hourly wages, and then you come to here and you're 1099. One thing, the mindset that has to transition is you have to transition from a W-2 employee to a business owner,
That's
right?
powerful.
Because as a 1099 employee, you have to invest into yourself, not just monetarily, but in product knowledge, training, script, and so forth, but then also monetarily from a leads perspective. That was something that I was able to see very, very early in my insurance career, which is why I think I was able to be so successful right out the gate, which is one of the biggest problems for a new agent coming from like a W-2 job. They don't see that right out the gate, right? They don't understand that you have to really treat this like a true business, right?
That's a great segue into we talked the other day, and you were explaining the level of work, preparation, training you were doing yourself on the products, obviously all the training that was offered to you. And dude, it sounded like, it was so funny because I'm thinking, okay, Eli was a full-time pharmacist when he's doing all these things, and he's putting in 3, 4, 5 hours a day sometimes of also product training.
Absolutely.
And then dialing on top of that,
right.
Working weekends, working nights, working early mornings, calling other time zones. And I'm thinking, I can't help but have this thought go through my head. Eli was putting in more work as a part-time agent, probably even more hours than as a part-time agent than some agents who say they're full-time.
Exactly.
And so is that what you're talking about when you're talking about having the mindset of a business owner?
Absolutely, because people see this industry and how lucrative it is and see how much money you can make looking in from the outside, right? But they don't understand when you get into this industry, you have to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy whatsoever. Even no matter you see the social media gurus and how easy they make it look, those people put in the time and the hours day in and day out. And that was something that you just got to see past and know that you got to work. You really got to work to succeed and separate yourself from the average agent to a great agent, right?
Yeah.
And yes, absolutely. I agree to that. Great.
Dude, so talk to us about what those first couple months look like as far as your schedule, because there might be someone out there like, dude, I want to make this a career, but just like you were thinking, they're like, I need proof of concept.
Absolutely.
I need to go out there and see that I can do this, to give myself the belief to go all in. So talk to people about the schedule you worked, what you were putting into training, what you were putting into dialing, how you were working, so that they can get a picture of what they can do.
Absolutely. I call it the schedule for success. So my very first week, right after I got contracted, I treated this exactly like I did with school. I studied, and then studied some more. Like I was going into, for example, a Mutual of Omaha and playing around with the application, running fake apps on myself so I could see it from the client's perspective in case they have questions for me on the back end, doing product knowledge, working on illustrations, WinFlex. I did all that on my own. I just spent hours and hours. I treated it exactly like school because the best way I can learn is by practically applying it, writing notes, doing it myself essentially. Once I had the product knowledge, I probably spent maybe 100 hours on product knowledge, just trying to figure it out my very first week in the industry after I got contracted. Going into week 2, I started the schedule for success. My schedule for success was from 8 to 10 a.m. every day. I was dialing leads. It doesn't matter what lead source you're working, I was dialing leads to get my reps in, because at the end of the day, I learned the best by practically applying it. So even though I didn't quite know what I was doing right out the gate, I knew I had to get on the phone with these clients to, basically work on where I wasn't good at, because I needed the client to be like, this doesn't make sense, or you're not the best agent, which is okay with me. It's a learning curve, right? It's my first sales-based industry. So
quick pause right here, because what you're saying is so powerful. I don't want losers to, I don't want the
viewers,
edit that. I don't want what you're saying is so powerful. I don't want listeners to miss it. What would you say to an agent who's like, Eli, I want to wait to hit the phones. I want to wait to really go all in, because I don't feel like I know it all yet, and I don't want to make a mistake.
Absolutely. I had that fear as well, but I realized very soon that you can continue to keep doing product knowledge and studying, but you're going to learn the fastest by getting on the phones and talking to these clients. Even if you don't quite know what you're doing, getting real reps, it's just like in sports, right? Getting real reps is going to make you that much better. I can sit in the film room all day and watch film, but till I practically apply it, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to get that much better until I'm on the field doing it. And it's the same thing in this industry. Like, I knew I had to get on the phones and talk to these clients and make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. You are not an expert, right? You know that. It's okay to make mistakes. And I had to teach myself mentally, okay, I'm going to make the mistake, but the next time I'm not going to make that same mistake. And that's how I was really able to accelerate my learning curve, by just getting on the phones. But still, I'm doing product knowledge, right? Because I don't know everything. I'm doing product knowledge, but I'm also still dialing.
Dude, you know what's so cool about that too, is just thinking about your first couple months. You made all those mistakes and still made the best money of your life.
Absolutely.
Up to that point.
It's crazy, right?
So I think that's really some of the best advice I ever heard be given about insurance, is make your mistakes as quick as you can, because as fast as you make them, you'll overcome them and start really being successful.
I agree to that.
So you were putting a ton of time in studying, putting in the reps, calling clients. Where was this fitting in your full-time schedule?
So when I was working as a full-time pharmacist, I was doing 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., right? 8 hours, which is perfect, because in the insurance world, prime time dialing hours is from 4 to 8 p.m. the client's time zone. The reason for that is because people are headed home from work.
Right.
They're chilling, they're relaxing at the crib. You don't get a lot of objections about, oh, I'm at work right now, call me back later, I'm busy. People have time to actually speak to you. So I would work my full-time job. 2 hours after, I would do product knowledge for a couple hours from 3 to 5, and then I would dial from 5 to 9 p.m. right, on East Coast leads. And then once I was licensed in West Coast leads and Pacific Standard, Mountain Standard, and Central Standard leads, I started expanding my leads so I could dial later into the evenings, because I was in Florida at the time. So I could dial my West Coast leads all the way up until about 11 p.m. Eastern time, right?
Nice.
So I basically work from prime time dialing hours from East Coast all the way to West Coast, so I can hit those prime time dialing hours in every time zone. But then, I'm waking up and doing the pharmacy again, and then kind of, plug and play and repeating.
Dude, that's beautiful, because that's something that anyone can really take advantage of, whether it be calling earlier in the day or later, like you were doing. So you were basically calling people for a straight 8 hours and maximizing that time that you were hitting them in their perfect time zone where people were getting home from work.
Exactly. Not to mention, I was also, another thing that helped me too is War Market, right? War Market costs you $0.
Yeah, speak on this.
There's zero lead spend for War Market. Plus, any person you talk to that knows you already, they know you're new to the industry. So you can make mistakes with someone that you know, and they'll take the time to finish that application with you. So I was able to learn a lot by selling my family, friends, and loved ones policies, you know, getting a little bit of cash flow into, you know, my bank account, and then reinvesting that money into leads. But now I'm that much better for someone who doesn't know me, who doesn't know I'm new in the insurance industry, and closing them, because I was able to practice on my family, friends, and loved ones. So for those new agents that are coming into the industry, you definitely want to maximize the warm market right out the gate, because it costs you $0.
Yeah.
Nothing.
And on top of that, I mean, imagine being a full-time rep, a full-time agent, and then someone in your family passing away, which of course is going to happen, and them not having what you sell for a living.
Exactly. Like, it would kill me.
Yeah.
It would literally kill me to think like, wow, my grandmother or my cousin just passed away and I'm an insurance agent, and I didn't even attempt to reach out to them to get them a policy, right? You can at least try, even if your family and loved ones say, no, I can't afford it or whatnot, you can at least attempt to get them a policy, right? And make the commitment.
Dude, and let's talk real quick about referrals, because dude, you kill it on referrals. I think you told me, I don't want to get the metric wrong, like something like 20% of your business is just referral business.
Absolutely.
And so talk to agents about, and that's huge, because you'll sell 400 plus again this year. I think you already hit it for the year. So you'll probably land somewhere around 440, 450, I imagine. Last year you hit over 400. So I mean, we're talking 20%. That's another $80,000 a year of business that you've written and paid zero money on leads.
Exactly.
So talk to agents about how they get referrals.
So my number one, referral tactic is, let's say I just closed the deal, right? Close the deal. Everybody and their mama has a beneficiary on their policy, right? I tell the client, I give them a fun fact about life insurance. I say, hey client, by the way, every year, and you guys can stat check me on this, it may be different, but every year about $1 billion in life insurance goes unclaimed. The main reason for that is because life insurance works just like car insurance. If you get in an accident today, you got to file a claim to the carrier to get paid on that accident to get that car fixed. But it's the owner's job to file that claim in car insurance. The difference is, in life insurance, the insured or owner is not going to be here, unfortunately. So it's the beneficiary's job to do that. And what happens is, and the reason why that death benefit goes unclaimed is because either A, the beneficiary doesn't know they're the beneficiary because there was no communication between the insured and the beneficiary, or B, the beneficiary doesn't know how to submit the claim the correct way. So as an agent, it's not only my responsibility to get that insured protected, but also when that day comes for that insured, I can actually help the beneficiary submit that claim the correct way. So I tell my clients that after I close them on a deal and say, hey, I can reach out to your beneficiary and then offer my contact card, so whenever that day comes, they can reach out to me to help for the claim. And then when I get on that call with that beneficiary, once I get the information from the client, I'll let them know, like, hey, you're the beneficiary, here are your roles and responsibilities, but also, do you have a life insurance policy as well? Because so-and-so just got a policy from me and I'm going to be their agent for life. What that does is, now that beneficiary in the back of their head, they're like, okay, well, so-and-so just got a policy from them. This person's probably reputable. Maybe I should get a policy too. So now I'm just able to, it's not even necessarily a referral in a sense, because I'm just doing my job as an agent. Bare minimum, I want to educate the beneficiary, right? But if I can get a deal out of it to get that family member protected too, kudos to me. It's a cherry on top. So
I love this on so many levels. For one, I've noticed this is the trend with everything that you do. You're always looking to add value.
Absolutely.
Whether it be to agents or clients. You were talking about a situation the other day where you didn't even sell a client, but you're like, I want to make sure they understand like how this works, and you ended up getting a great referral from that. That wasn't even necessarily your goal. You just know, hey, if I'm just always adding value, it's going to come. Which I think is just a beautiful way to look at life.
Absolutely.
Was it Zig Ziglar said, you can have anything you want in life as long as you help enough other people get it first.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so I love it because, I mean, as an agent, I'm just thinking myself as you're telling the story about all the unclaimed life insurance. How many times have I talked to a prospective client that has life insurance in place that does not know where their policy is, that doesn't even know what kind of insurance they have, how much coverage, how much they're even paying sometimes. So if they don't know that, does their beneficiary even know they have a policy
9 times out of 10,
or know where to look for it? So you're adding so much value to your clients, just making sure, hey, I'm going that extra step to make sure that their family is protected. And then on top of that, dude, that business, it's got to be the stickiest
Oh, for
business
sure.
because you know their friend already got one.
Right.
Now they're getting that warm referral. Oh, this is a trusted agent. They're getting that. They're not even. You're not even being pushy about it. They're
Right.
asking.
It's a natural conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I love that. I love that so much. If you're an agent out there and you're not doing that, I mean, how much business do you think realistically agents are missing?
Oh, I would say so. 15 to 20% of my business is just from referrals, and so I did. I'm trending towards $500,000. Let's call it $500,000. 15% of $500,000. That's $75,000 of just extra cash flow in my pocket for just doing my job and educating the client and the beneficiary.
Yeah.
Super simple.
Dude, I love it. Dude, let's transition here because I don't think anyone who's listening is confused about the way you're looking at this like a business.
Absolutely.
I don't think anyone's confused as far as like the work ethic, the hours that you put in, the dedication, the discipline. It's all apparent immediately. I think what is really cool and why I want everyone to see Eli is to see what you can do in this business in such a short time. So your first year, you wrote right around $405,000
Yep.
in issue paid business.
Yes, sir.
This year, you're right around 450 in about half of the time. So let's talk about that real quick, and then we'll get into growing the business.
Yes, sir.
How did you write more business in half the time?
I'm a firm believer of working smarter, not harder. If you ask Drake and Carlos, my business partners, they tell me I'm the most efficient individual they've ever met. Because we all got the same 24 hours in a day, so I'm going to maximize those 24 hours day in and day out. And there was 2 ways I was able to achieve this. Basically, I'm going to produce more this year and putting in half the amount of time in regards to my systems and processes. I basically maximize my systems and processes, specifically one, my CRM. I'm a huge advocate of a CRM and maximizing your CRM. For you new agents that don't know what a CRM is, clients relations management system. Basically, it's like a virtual assistant that helps you on the front end and the back end of your business. What I mean by that is a CRM does everything for me from A to Z. So just how our system is set up at Financially Fluent, we generate our own leads. Lead comes directly into my CRM. They get a text message right out the gate, and it continuously texts the client until they respond back. We also have an AI bot automation implemented into the CRM that basically books the appointment for me. So I have my business automated on the front end to help me book more deals and increase sales production. But on the back end, this is the game changer right here. Chargebacks is the number one culprit in this industry. I'm able to have a very low chargeback rate and high client retention because the CRM sends payment reminders, holiday reminders, birthday reminders, and so forth to continuously engage them and remind them, you need to make your payment, no chargebacks and so forth. So that business is completely on autopilot. So I don't have to dial nearly as much because the CRM is doing everything for me. So I can wake up one day to like 10 booked appointments because of the CRM automations and AI. I just got to close 3 or 4 of those deals, and I only had to spend 2 or 3 hours on the phone talking to the client, not even dialing, right?
Yeah.
So that's part A. Part B is we have our own in-house leads. For any new agent out there, yes, it's okay to buy external leads. That's completely fine. But ultimately, in the long run, you want to be able to generate your own leads in-house because the reason this made a huge difference for me is every lead that comes to me, I'm in the ad. So as soon as I get on the phone with that client, they've already seen me. I don't even have to build as much rapport because I could be like, I was the individual in that ad. You submitted the request about IUL, term life, whole life, final expense, IBC concept, whatever the case may be. But I was in front of the ad and they've already seen me. So it makes it much easier for me to close that deal and not have to build as much trust and credibility right out the gate because they already trust me in a sense because they saw my face in the ad. So I'm able to convert those leads at a much higher rate without having to put in nearly as much time because I generate my own leads in-house. Now, once again, you guys can continue to buy external lead source, but the name of the game is really to generate them in-house and start running your own ad campaigns.
Yeah, that's really strong. So obviously got very into your CRM, controlling the lead source much better. I imagine running more leads, like in a sense,
absolutely.
more actual appointments. So the quality of what you're doing is much higher.
Yes, exactly.
Now let's talk about why you did it in half the time, because you're not out there, chilling.
Oh, not at all, man. Not at all.
You're working hard,
Yeah.
but that other half of work is directed towards a much higher long-term income producing activity,
Absolutely.
which is building your agency.
Yes, sir.
So
Yep.
talk about what you did this year, what Financially Fluent did growing in 2024?
Yeah, so one thing, one issue we saw in this industry is it's kind of like the Wild Wild West, depending on what agency you're with, in a sense where because you're 1099, right? You come into this industry, if you don't have a lot of guidance, you might not know where to start or what to do right out the gate. And sometimes your upline may not be the best upline in the sense that maybe they're a killer producer, but maybe they're not a great developer and leading you to success in a sense.
Sure.
So we saw that as a huge problem in this industry, and there was no groundwork, there was no basis, there was no resources, there was no plug and play system. So at Financially Fluent, we was like, number one problem we got to solve is we need to focus on the resources and have a plug and play system where if a new agent comes in, they have a clear and concise goal of what they need to do in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and then we can sell off into the sunset and they're good to go. So that starts with training, that starts with our boot camp, that starts with Financially Fluent University. Basically, we spent like 9 months out of this year just focusing on the basics of when we bring an agent in, this is exactly what you need to do. It's clear and concise. There's no deviation here, deviation here. You need to do this. You need to do your boot camp leads. You need to do your CRM. You need to do WinFlex and so forth. So we really focused on that, and that will allow us to now scale and recruit at a massive scale, right? Because we solved that first problem, which every agent, I feel like when they're not happy with their current home is because they didn't have the guidance and the resources. Sure. And it starts with that first and foremost. And that's something that we focused on primarily majority of the year, which is why half of my time was committed to that, to development of my new agents and figuring out that systems and processes, those SMPs to make it a plug and play system.
Yeah.
So that's why most of my time was diverted from less from personal producer and just focusing on building out the agency and the brand.
Eli, let's talk about the growth that you experienced this year. Where was Financially Fluent at the beginning of the year, and where are you guys now?
So at the beginning of the year, man, if I'm being so we just had our 1-year anniversary, right? Back in September. So what is it? November now, so 2 months ago. At the beginning of the year, quite frankly, we were still trying to figure it out because we still were looking at the company as just uplines and downlines, right? Now we see it as a agency and all the downlines are direct to the agency, meaning me, Drake, and Carlos, we're the agency, we're Financially Fluent, and we're direct to, or the downlines are direct to the agency. There was no resources. In a sense, there was still no guidance. We knew what we needed to do, but one, we didn't have the resources quite yet, you know, from a monetary perspective. But also, two, it was just a lot of chaos. Now that we've sat down, figured out the blueprint, and we know exactly what we need to do for the future, fast forward to November now, and, you know, 9 months down the road, we know exactly what we got to accomplish, right? And now it's time to go recruit. We figured out that there's a plug and play system. We have the blueprint for the agent. Now we can go on a massive recruiting spree. Before, we didn't really want to focus on recruiting because you don't want to bring in an agent and then you got the blind leading the blind.
Right.
That's what leads to the comment I made about the Wild Wild West for this industry, right?
Right.
So I don't want to bring in agents while we're still trying to figure out the basics and the resources and the foundation. So once we figured that out, fast forward to here, now we can go on a massive recruiting spree, and that's kind of our main focus going into 2025 right now is recruit, as well as another reason why we joined Pinnacle. You guys are phenomenal at that. Y'all have the same morals, same ethics. Gabe and Joe are just top of the tier, man. So like that's our main goal going into 2025 is just recruit at a massive scale.
Yeah. And you guys, you tripled production this year?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm honestly, it might be almost quadruple.
Yeah.
We might hit quadruple by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So like and what's crazy is we were able to do that while we were still figuring it out. I feel like going into 2025, end of 2025, we may be like the numbers will be absurd for the sole fact that now we're able to just focus on recruiting.
Yeah. Dude, if I was a brand new agent looking at you, like something that's like paramount to me about everything you said is, dude, how much you can accomplish just moving forward with as much intentionality as you can, even when you don't exactly know 100% what it's going to look like yet.
Exactly.
Because you did that as a producer, you guys have done that as an agency, and it's just worked out beautifully.
Right.
And obviously, I'm sure there were hiccups along the way. I'm sure, you know, there were learning curves. But, dude, just going forward, is that something you teach to all your agents?
Absolutely, because one thing is I know a lot of agents are not coming into this industry with previous sales experience or even previous insurance experience, right? But if I see that an agent is going to go ball to the wall day in and day out to try to figure this out, right? And they're going to make hiccups and mistakes on the way, that's completely fine with me because that agent is coachable and they're trainable, right? That's the same way in sports. If somebody, you might not be the most talented in the room, right? But if you have the work ethic of a freaking monster, you are going to be successful, which is what I pride myself in. I've never been the most talented, but I know for sure if I'm sitting in a room, I'm gonna work harder than any and everybody around me.
Yeah.
So when I see those tangible or those non-tangibles in an agent, I'm like, that's coachable. He or she's gonna be a dog,
Yeah.
right? Because they're going to put in hours, day in and day out, to figure it out. Maybe it may take them 2-3 months. Or maybe even a year, but if they're going hard every single day, they're going to figure it out. So 100% yes to that.
Dude, we're right here at the end of the year, going into 2025. You guys are just locked in, focused. I couldn't be more excited about the partnership between Financially Fluent and Pinnacle. Dude,
Absolutely.
what does 2025 look like? What are the goals? What are we focusing on?
2025, number one, I've said this multiple times if you guys don't know, recruiting at a massive scale. That's number one. Number two is one thing we're really excited about is, and I don't know if we can maybe edit this out, but Medicare and healthcare. For the sole fact, as an insurance agent, you get your 215 in Florida, you're licensed in life and health.
Right.
But that is where the residual money is. That is what's going to make it for the long run, right? Because no one wants to be a producer for the rest of your life. That residual income and that residual money is what's going to change your life and create generational wealth for the future. But also that goes hand in hand with creating out an agency and building a team and getting overrides and so forth, which is why number one is recruiting. And then number two is going to be a main focus on healthcare and Medicare.
I couldn't agree more, man. I think that's one of the, I don't have many regrets in this industry, but I think not getting into that portion sooner. But I mean, I'm so excited for the future. I mean, we're 100% aligned on that.
Absolutely.
We're going to go ham on that this year. So, man, you have just given so much value on this call, man. I think from every angle, from any producer who's either brand new, looking at how to get into this business, some as a top producer getting into building, or someone who's trying to scale their business. If you had one like kind of final parting shout to somewhere, anywhere along the line, someone who's like, man, they're looking at you, they want to produce on a higher level, they want to get more disciplined, help more agents, get more of their system either automated or just on a more replicatable track, what's a piece of advice you'd give to everybody?
It goes back to what I said initially at the beginning of this podcast interview. You have to treat this like a business. You have to invest mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and monetarily on all cylinders, right? Because if you do that day in and day out, you will 100% figure it out. I promise you that, right? Initially, you may not see the value right away, but you just got to keep chipping at it. There's been plenty of agents I've seen that have come into this industry. They maybe didn't get it right away, but they trusted the process. They trusted the blueprint. They trusted what we told them. And now they're freaking killing it. So for any new agent out there, you have to treat this like a business, plain and simple.
Eli, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much, man. Dude, we're so excited for your success. Can't wait to see what Financially Fluent is at the end of the year, dude.
Thank you again, Gabe. I appreciate you, man.
God bless you all. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you at the Pinnacle.
Whoa, yeah.